Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Your Seat at the Table with me, your host, Eve Solomon Fernandez, president of Urban College of Boston. I am joined today by Anna Berry, who is the vice president of student success at Urban College. Anna, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Always great to be with you. So Anna, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and how you got to Urban College? I'm sure folks are curious.
Well, like many people, I have various identities. One of them is as a professional at the Urban College of Boston, and the other is as a mom. I have 3 grown children. I'm also an avid flower gardener and love everything outdoors, particularly in the summertime. Not so much in the winters in New England anymore. I've been at Urban College for about 2 years, a little bit less. And prior to coming here, I was at a small rural community college in Western Massachusetts, where I did similar work to what I do now, with a slightly different student population, but still many first-generation students, students who didn't necessarily see themselves as having a seat at the table in a college setting. Myself, I came to college partially by accident. I never imagined I would go to college, and I never would have been accepted into any college based on my high school experience. So community college was the only pathway for me. And quite honestly, college changed my life.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So Anna, you spent 18 years working at a rural community college, but you're now working at an urban college. And I understand that you are originally a city girl, and you were even part of the inaugural class of Head Start. So tell us a little bit. What do you enjoy most about working in this demographic, and what does it feel like to be at Urban College in this moment?
Well, it's true. I am a city girl, and I'm a city girl at heart. I grew up in New York City, the Lower East Side of New York City, which during that time was largely an immigrant community, primarily Puerto Rican and Polish families. In fact, my own family, my mother was an immigrant from Sweden, came to this country not speaking a word of English. And we fell into that category of low-income families, and as a result, qualified for the Head Start program. So my earliest memories in education were in Head Start. In fact, some of my most formative experiences from the community meals that Head Start did with kids, as well as I learned that Santa Claus did not exist when I was in Head Start because I saw the janitor changing out of his Santa Claus costume. But my
No way to ruin it for a child.
Exactly. I have lots of other stories to tell, but I'll spare you those. But being part of that community really, how my life has turned out, I think I would be considered one of the success stories of Head Start programs in terms of the support that it gave to our family, but also how it got me on a trajectory to being in education and taking my education seriously. But that experience of my early life in New York City has made me always feel very comfortable interacting across a variety of environments with a variety of different people in many different communities.
That's great. So, Anna, I think we heard a little bit about what brought you to Urban College. What keeps you at Urban College? What do you like so much about the place? And I'm also curious because I see you as someone who embraces new things, novel things, whether it's technology, whether it's meeting new people. Where does that come from? So, yeah, wherever you want to start.
That's an interesting question about change, or new technologies and current things. I've been called a change junkie before because I do like
Official title.
Yes, exactly. And a very change junkie. I could be called worse things, right? I think that novelty excites me, and it's not change for change's sake so much as it is that we're all always learning and always growing. In fact, I wish I had it with me. I'm going to post on LinkedIn about this, but about how as human beings, we are always developing and we're never fully formed. And that idea is exciting to me. And so coming to Urban College, quite honestly, was an opportunity for my own changes and growths, and for me to utilize skills that I've developed over the years to impact a new community of learners. And I think because of my own lived experience growing up with a mom who struggled with English and feeling like she belonged in the community that we lived in, really opened me up to understanding how differences that people see in themselves can really become strengths. My father also had a sister with really severe disabilities, and that very, very early in my life was a point of focus on social justice and a real commitment to making sure that everybody felt that they had a seat at the table, that they felt a sense of belonging, whether it was in school or in their work or in their communities. And at Urban College of Boston, we have the opportunity to invite our students to pull up a seat and see themselves in a way that they may never have seen themselves before. And it is truly one of the most gratifying things that I've gotten to do in my career.
Great. Yeah, it's just really nice to hear you share so much of yourself. I'm learning things about you that I didn't know, and I feel like I've known you for a bit. You talk a lot about early childhood education and what that means to you, and you also have some personal experiences, not just with Head Start, as someone who went through that, but your working with the tiniest, youngest people, and now working with adult learners and having adult children who go to college and all of that. How does your work today wrap it all together for you?
Well, I probably have one of the most non-traditional paths to being an administrator in higher education of many of my colleagues. I actually started my career in early childhood education. So my first degree, my bachelor's degree, is in human development and family studies with an emphasis in early childhood. And my master's degree is in occupational therapy. So that married my two passions, children and disability, and creating pathways to accessible education and work for people with disabilities. And I knew that the greatest impact one could make was by impacting young children and their families. So first of all, it took me 12 years to get through school because I went to school part-time. So that's a similar lived experience to our own students. And quite honestly, I wouldn't do it any other way, because it was working and being in school that helped keep me sane, because I really did not believe that I belonged in college, and my identity as a worker was very, very strong. So I knew that going to work every day was a place that I would be successful. So I started my career working with young children with disabilities and did that for 12 years, and then headed into higher education through disability services. And what I always told people was that when you work with babies, and I specialized in infants and toddlers, when you work with babies, you're actually really working with the adults, because you're working with their parents, their caregivers, their grandparents, whoever are the primary caregivers for them. So switching to working with adults was a really natural progression for me. And quite honestly, I think I'm better suited for working with adults than I was with children. Not that I didn't do it well, but it's really where my heart lies. And so here I am, 20 years after leaving occupational therapy, And I feel like the most important lessons I learned in my life as a person, but also as a professional, was from working with children, because children teach us how to observe human behavior, how to communicate better, how to listen with our full self.
Wow, that is really deep. That is really deep. So we know you enjoyed working with little people. We know you enjoy working with adults. We know you have a passion for flowers. And I heard from a little birdie that you also at one point had a passion for motorcycles. So let's wrap up with that. Is that thrilling for you? You still do that? What is it about motorcycles?
So, in full disclosure, my passion was probably more for bad girl things and, thrilling things, and rebellion. Many people with teenagers love to hear my stories from high school because they're like, oh, wow, they might actually grow up into being responsible adults. But yes, indeed.
There's hope. There's hope.
There is hope, exactly. And then I always say, well, I don't know, I might just appear to be a responsible adult. But yes, I was into riding motorcycles in my much younger years. I was still in high school and had a friend who had motorcycles. And so I went off riding them. And probably the story that stands out the most is when I didn't have a license, by the way. I was riding my friend's dirt bike. And I got pulled over by the local sheriff, and I lived in a small town at that point. This was beyond New York City days. And I pulled off my helmet and turned around and looked at him, and he just shook my head because he knew my dad. And put your helmet back on and go home right now.
Yeah, that's bigger trouble than a ticket.
He didn't give me a ticket.
You're already in enough trouble at that point.
Exactly. I heard it from my dad, but I did not have to pay a fine.
Oh, that's great. Well, Anna, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and thank you for all the work that you do at Urban College. You are an extraordinary leader, and we are so fortunate to have you as one of the stewards of this college. So thank you, and thank you once. Wonderful. And thank you all for joining us today. Until next time, take good care.